Trust is not bought. You cannot buy trust. You have to win trust. And that takes time. You have to break a lot of barriers of preconceptions, which is one of the things that made me more proud when I see us winning a customer.
Julia, you are an inspiration for all VTEXers, but more than that, for a lot of Latin Americans that see in you powerful woman that is leading the way from a small company to IPO. And you did it not only one, but twice. I can tell you because you are my colleague that I enjoy and you are so smart. You have a lot of things to over always in the table and to, just working with you is so excited that I want to open this space so more people can know you, understand your background, and maybe to start to create a connection between you and your audience. Believe me, a lot of people admire you and see you like a referral voice in the market. So can you share a little bit of your background, please?
Thank you so much for the kind words. I hope to be, there at the standard that you put for me, which is very high. So a little bit of my experience. I started working basically in finance. I started in JPMorgan on the segment of research and M&A. I found out that was not for me. So I like it. It was challenging, but I didn't find that was fulfilling for me at the end. And I had the courage to say, this is not my path. Recognize it, which is something that sometimes is very tough to face.
Nobody trained you for that. Nobody trained us for that. Not in the school, not in the university.
No. And all my life, I've been like an overachiever in my mind of saying I have to.
I can see that.
I have to make everything work, know? And then facing with the fact that you're not happy with what you're doing. You don't see you can generate value, you can do something, but this is not for you. It's not where you're going to shine,
Yes.
And at that point, I didn't know that it was going to be so transformational for me. But I took the decision to take 1 year off and I went to work at more a different way in Enseñar for Argentina, which is Teach for Argentina. I went to very poor endeavors to teach math to kids. I thought it was a good thing while I was thinking about my career and what I wanted to do to give back something, because I was really gifted by being born a family that could give me food, that could give me good education. I didn't have a ceiling there, right? So in a sense, I thought, okay, I'm going to try to give something back.
Yeah.
And there, then I realized it was very tough as well. I wasn't prepared for all the difficulties as well of managing that experience, but it was great because it also made me understand that I needed to do something that added value, that gave people work, that could help people to have a better life. And I believe that I ended up on the right position nowadays. But before getting into VTEX, then I went again to private equity, to the dark side of the moon again, because basically it was what I understood and what I knew. But there's when I started covering the retail space. And that's when I discovered retail and fell in love with it. So I worked on the pricing strategy for a company that we were bringing from Europe to the US. So also I had this experience with different countries and different cultures and understanding how the product differentiation had to be and the positioning and all those things. And I felt like, oh, this I like a little bit more. And by chance, and this is part of Chinese, there's a lot of preparation behind the scenes, but also you have to be open and take the opportunity when it arises. And Mercado Libre called me. They had an open position on the investor relations team. I don't know why they called me. I took the phone by chance and I started my career on e-commerce per se and on the investor relations side. Years went by. I found out that this was my true passion, right? To help on a LATAM company that was proudly growing and was generating a lot of shop positions and was working towards something that seemed like impossible, right? Like fighting the fight, digitalizing not only like the sales part, but also like payments and trying to drive logistics at that point. Like the QR code didn't exist at that point.
No.
So it was great to be part of that. But at some point, also being on the investor relations side, another opportunity arises that was the local, that was seeking for also doing an IPO. And for me, as an investor relations professional, it was a huge opportunity, right? To be part of that. Like, how do we position our story? How do we create numbers, right? Like the data. So I followed that path. And at the same time, when I joined VTEX, the local, VTEX called me because they were also searching for.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Almost at the same time.
Yes.
Very similar timeline.
Yes. And I remember it was super funny because Ricardo, the CFO, called me. And it was like, look, I just moved to the local. I'm doing the IPO. I gave my word. Like for me, my word was very important. And he was like, no, let's keep the conversation going. We kept the conversation for 6 months.
Wow.
The IPO, the local happened. I went to have dinner with Mariano. I met Geraldo, the founders and everything. And I was still like, it's a great company. I was always thinking, I really want to go to VTEX. And then I had the struggle, right? Of I did the IPO, I gave my word and I did it. Is it okay to change? Not, but at the end, I follow my heart. And I believe that when you follow your heart and you act with honesty and truthfully to yourself and to others, everything works out at the end. And I found a place where I can be myself, which is something that I value a lot, where I feel heard, where I feel understood, and where I can do a difference. And I do believe that taking a company that is from Brazil, LATAM, however you want to frame it mentally, and making it truly like international and making this region known for something else than commodities, and also kind of raving on the concept of the great talent that we have, especially on a area that was not typically that well known, right? That is like the developers. Typically, when you thought about that, you were thinking about like maybe India as a potential place. And nothing against that because it's true. But on a front-end standpoint, I don't know if it's a place. So having like a LATAM race and VTEX being the sponsor, if you may, if you let me take that
For sure.
artistic approach. But being a sponsor of it, it's amazing. And being part of that, part of history for LATAM, for Brazil, it's been outstanding. So
And you did it not once, twice, and for a good reason. I always see some talent that are driven more than money than for a purpose. And I can hear from you that you have a drive that is how we can literally enable Latin America, Brazilian, to show that we are more than commodities and literally create this breakthrough for Latin America in the world. Tell us a little bit about how was the difference between the first IPO that you did and the second one. How are the different type of IPOs, the type of co-founders? I can only imagine the stress that companies and people live there. You have inside information of all of that. Can you share something about that?
Sure. So I believe that the most stressful moment for any company is to go through an IPO. You have to be very well prepared. Many dream or think of doing an IPO. What I always say is like, think it very well. Not everyone is prepared for an IPO because you're going to be scrutinized as you've never been before. And then you're going to have commitments that you cannot break. And that's very painful if you're not well prepared. And with well prepared, I don't mean only the numbers, but your strategy. Like, is your company mature enough to go through it? Are you gonna like really take this next step? Because being a public company, It's a different game.
It's not even
It's
about
a different
revenue.
league.
Yeah, it's not even about revenue or how much you are
No.
making. Is are you able to run a public company with a clear vision, a strategy, and execution in a disciplined way, not you through emotion.
Exactly. And also, for instance, one thing that I noticed, and I'm going to go back to your prior question because I know I derail a little bit. But for instance, the markets lately, since 2021, right? Like VTEX went public in July of 2021.
Yeah.
And it was mainly the last window opportunity for companies to go live. Gladly we did it when we did it.
That
you know?
was not lucky shot because it was planned, but yeah, we did it in the right time, in the
At the
right
right
moment,
time.
with correct people.
100%. Market went crazy for different reasons. And you're going to have so many things that go outside of what you can control. And if you as a company, you're not mature enough to understand those movements, and you're going to be watching the Bloomberg, thing all day long and obsessing and thinking, oh, now that I value 20% more, I'm a much better company. And tomorrow that I value 40% less, then we're
Then you are
screwed and
depressed.
you're depressed. That's gonna basically kill your company. That's the point. You cannot take, decisions based on short-term movements and volatility in the market. You have to keep seeing your goal. What are you going for, right? Like, what are you trying to bring? What are your values? And what is the thing that you're really, like aiming to do? And if you're on the right track, and not also be open to all the thoughts that can arise in the market, because the market is very opinionated and they're gonna have lots of opinions. So you have to be truthful also and have very open conversations on a C-level standpoint with your board, and of course be open and permeable on whatever things come from the market, but be very aware that this is your company and this is how you want to do business, because the market wants things on a short term sometimes. There are some investors long term that will accompany you through that, but you have to be very wise to distinguish who is who and what's the best really for a company without being stubborn. It's a very fine line.
It's so easy to fall for that.
It's very
for the founders and the C-level, because you have this public earnings call, you have every quarter, like public accountability. You always want to show off that you are growing, that you have more margins, but sometimes you need to follow a strategy, and sometimes strategy can be painful to operate a company to guarantee the
100%.
future.
And if you think about it, like we have long sales cycles, right? We're operating on the enterprise segment. It's not the same that if you're in the long tail and it's just like, clicks on Google and then you get new leads. That's not how it works. And for instance, many years ago, like people were seeing, like even at the IPO, and we mentioned it, right? Like the US and Europe is an optionality.
Yeah.
And even though we're not saying now, hey, we passed through the breaking point and now it's all a given, we say, yeah, we're working very diligently. But now we have more and more customers in the hundreds of millions of GMV. We already have under implementation a customer in the $1 billion in the US. We have more in Europe. We mentioned Manchester City publicly, so I can mention them in Europe. And those are things that now investors have like that. Okay, so VTEX was doing the right thing, but 2 months ago you thought we didn't.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so tricky, like how you have to manage the company, understanding that you're not going to be able to disclose everything all the time. People are not going to price those things. It can be somehow, tough for the company and the employees if they follow all the time that. So nothing, it depends, on your maturity standpoint on that front. And I believe that VTEX is very well prepared. And I never, you don't know, Santi, how much I appreciate to work here where C-level and the board are so mature that they understand all these movements that are more like macro related, interest rates that go up and down, and then you have trade policies and this and that, and they understand those movements and they keep focus. And that gives me the space also to work and bring them results. Because if they were pressuring me because, no, now the stock is here and now that doesn't leave you space to like focus as well and work. So I believe that those things come up, down, and that's something that VTEX understands very well. And to your previous question, I had a lot of learning experience at the local IPO. It's very stressful for our companies. That's a reality. Like I remember not sleeping for many months. It was like 4 hours.
Seriously?
Yeah, seriously. Like missing birthdays and like everything. And it was tough. But at the same time, when you have a goal, and you want to also demonstrate yourself that you can do it, you get through it, right? Like things do not come with that effort. That's something that we all
That's
know,
a reality.
right? Like
Discipline,
nobody see the effort and the discipline. They only see results.
totally.
But things came with a lot of suffering in a good sense. Like it depends on you, right? How you take it. If it's like suffering in a bad or good way. But what I learned, for instance, on the IPO process is that, well, as I mentioned, C-level focus on the right things is the most important thing, not trying to, inflate things up or deflate things if it doesn't worth it. But also banks and other players that are involved on the IPO process. Like one of the first things that you choose when you start the IPO process is the banks that are going to accompany you throughout that process, right? And that's challenging because everyone comes and pitches to you your story, and you have to try to pick like who understands, who get it, who you believe is gonna basically defend you the most. And at the end, what happens there is that you start a relationship where they are trying to seduce you. And everyone tells you that you're the most beautiful company ever. And at the end, you have to learn not to trust that.
Wow.
Because on that process, then, and this is something that I told like the VTEX team when I arrived, you are the meal. You have to remember that. So be careful. The customers are the way that they do money on a big picture is with investors and with allocation and with those things, right? So if their incentive at the same time is to bring the best pricing for their customers, which is not you. So I remember at VTEX, there was a moment on the IPO that we were defining the final pricing, right?
Yes, I remember
And it
that
was,
moment.
yeah.
It was crazy.
It was crazy. It was very challenging. The only thing that I told Mariano and Geraldo before they went to walk and think about it was, remember, this is your company. You IPO only once. If you don't defend your pricing and your company, nobody else is going to do it. Think about it. They went to walk. And then one thing that I appreciated a lot as well that I didn't see in other companies is that they gathered the full team and they said,
I was there.
Exactly. But people were not there. So I believe this is very important to understand the culture of VTEX
They co-created
and the power,
and
the power that it has.
Excited there. It was a war room full of emotion and celebration.
Exactly. And they came and said, we thought about it. This is our decision. Do you accompany us? So the way VTEX rule by not treating employees as numbers, but treating them as, co-owners in a sense, which is a smarter thing to do.
It is.
Because that's the way that you get people engaged and people fighting for you to the end. So I believe that was a very beautiful lesson and something that I saw that, made me say, this is my place, right?
That is, I didn't remember that, but was one of the most emotional day of my life. We were there in New York, I think JPMorgan.
In JPMorgan
office. Yeah. And we were together making that decision. And yes, Geraldo and Mariano invite all of us to make the call together.
People were crying. It was amazing.
It was amazing. Something important. I need to do this question. People always ask me, Santi, why VTEX stock go up or go down? Can you give a short answer on that?
Sure. So as I mentioned, there are multiple factors, right? They are factors that are related to the performance of the company and factors that are outside of our control that are macro. So let me go first on the first bucket, the ones that are in our control. So stock goes up clearly when you outperform your revenue guidance. Remember that VTEX is on the bucket of high growth companies.
Yes.
VTEX goes up if we also surprise on a margin perspective, because cash is king, baby.
Yeah.
And the reality is that that's where, investors understand this good return. The company is healthy and we have the capacity.
It's well managed.
Exactly. So those are things that are very important. And then, of course, if there are relevant names that basically show you that VTEX is continuing on that, growth perspective, especially in the US, everyone is focused there, especially in Europe, but also, for instance, in Brazil. So recently when we mentioned Americanos as a new customer go live, that was very important for Brazil because people were thinking like, do you still have room to grow in Brazil?
Still a market share to conquer?
40% plus market share there. You've been growing at an amazing level, like more than 20% for like many, many years.
Yeah.
Does it make sense? Like people were wondering that. People was wondering that like 7 years ago, and we keep delivering. So for them to see there's another phase, let's say another bucket of very large companies that can migrate and are deciding to do so and are doing it because of what VTEX offers, not only operationally on the e-commerce side per se, but also on the profitability side, on the efficiency, on the ease of operation. That changed the mindset. And then you have B2B, and then you have advertising and all these things that also push further, that growth opportunity for the company on the most mature geography. But all those factors are the ones that, of course, put you in a bullish, scenario on the investor side. Then on the opposite side, if by any reason you underperform what you were expecting, and for us, that's possible because we have 2/3 of our revenues that is attached to the GMV of our customers, which means what our customers sell, which is something that we don't control. And in macro scenarios of volatility,
everything can happen.
Everything can happen to one side or the other. And that can surprise us. And when it surprises to the negative side, as we are a high growth company, that generates, a moment where it's like for investors, how should I see future growth coming? Is this a new level? Is it going to then accelerate, continue to decelerate? And that changes the way that they see it.
That is an amazing articulation why we push so hard to conquer the world as a company, because we want to have revenue coming from all continents. We want to have revenue from Europe, from Africa, Asia, United States, because as more GMV you have, statistically you can do a more clear forecast. And of course, to not be dependent on currency. And
you can raise the dependence on specific regions. And for instance, in the fourth quarter, that we had a huge movement on FX in Brazil. That was a moment where I was telling investors, this is why we need to continue to penetrate the US, because that's going to bring us more US dollars on different geographies. So yeah, of course. But the reality there as well is that for us, internalization, besides then all the, proudness that it brings to us to bring VTEX and software as a standard for the international coming from Brazil, coming from LATAM, what happens there is a very defensive mode for LATAM. And as you know, also it helps even like to accelerate in Mexico and things like that. But also it helps you to grab more global contracts. That it's something that at the end ends up locking up LATAM for other players to come. So it's something that's very important for us as a business case. Even the results that are to come are one way or the other. But I do believe it's a very smart decision for us to keep operating for many, many years.
Fully aligned. It is not obvious, for example, to invest in Europe, Asia, or United States. It is not obvious when you have so low cost of acquisition in LATAM and Brazil. For us, we already have the awareness, we have the brand. So it's easy for us to sell and operate in the United States, in LATAM and Brazil. But if we are able to unlock Europe and United States, the company will create a new market share that will give us a new reality, a new future, a new company. And yes,
It's
it is
X-time VTEX.
X-time VTEX. And yes, it's a bet. We have a playbook. We have a growth playbook where we define some methodologies, how we scale, how we operate. But yes, this is what we are doing. We are trying it. I think investors are defining where to bet and where not to bet when they see our company. But as you say, this is a new level when you are able to do this publicly an efficient way. You are not doing just emotional decision of where to bet and where not to bet. No, you need to be open and allow everyone to challenge their ideas and where you put the resources, your capital to scale.
Yes, and that's a very important point that you're bringing, Santi, because at the time of the IPO, like 5% of our revenues were coming from rest of the world, which is basically US and Europe. And we were burning a lot of money there, like 30% of our expenses.
Oh,
you know?
my God.
So
I remember.
at that time, it was a real bleeding situation that was a bold bet that we understood the future that we were building, but people couldn't see it, in results. Is that part that I mentioned about people see the results, but they don't see all the suffering? When you're a public company, people see the suffering. And the problem is, as you mentioned, they are going to start pressuring on why are you losing money if you don't know when the results or if the results are going to come. So why I'm going to invest here if you're bleeding out this much on these little results? And fast forward to today, we have 11% of our revenues coming from rest of the world with the same mainly level of investment, which I'll say it's not 100% break even, but very close. So on a financial standpoint, I'm coming from the financial team, right? I'm very excited about it because I'm not almost bleeding anything and I'm opening a huge opportunity for the company that's transformational at the end. And now investors, because I try to put this idea and they see it, of course they are excited. And now they are not asking, why are you putting money there? Why are you investing there? They are asking like, what's the big name that you're going to announce, right?
Why to not put more money there?
They ask that as well. Yes, of course. And it's funny, right? You have a lot of education here, but even when they came with the other question, right, that you brought, like, why don't you allocate more than in Brazil?
Yeah.
The return is amazing. But there's always a point where if you invest more, what you're going to bring is detrimental in a sense of the extra amount that you are bringing. So you have to be very intelligent on how you allocate money, how you assess how much it makes sense, measuring demand. And that's something that I believe you, Ricardo, the CFO, and all the team are trying to measure to not overinvest, not underinvest. And it's a fine art. Let's say.
It is an art. Thank you for seeing that. Nobody see it. Thank you for recognizing it. It's an art. And something that bring my attention is also not only about money or the product. Sometimes to operate a global company with different cultures, time zone, languages, you need to be prepared.
Yeah.
In my point of view, for us to reach the next level of VTEX, we need to guarantee that we are able to operate 24/7 in Europe, United States, Asia. And for that, we cannot only invest in LATAM or Brazil. We need to create a culture that enable and embrace different geos, different way to operate, different way to buy and manage commerce, because it's not the same how you manage or create commerce in Brazil that in Dubai or in Germany. It's a different way. This is why we are the backbone of connected commerce and we compose and decompose our solution, but it's not always out of the box the same ICP where you're going to conquer the world. We are not like, I don't know, iPhone that we sell the same product for all the consumer. We are a technology.
Tropicalization of
Exactly.
the product.
Plus our ecosystem that allow us to create this last mile of application to deliver value for each of the regions.
And the ecosystem is very local, so you have to build it. Geography per geography.
And more than that, it's very local, technologically standpoint, but also we're in a B2B business, so relationships are important. And to be able to enter to some clients, region, or industry, you need to have trust, and the trust is
The trust is not bought.
exactly.
You cannot buy trust.
You can.
You have to win trust. And that
exactly.
takes time. That takes time. And also you have to break a lot of barriers of preconceptions, which is one of the things that made me more proud when I see us winning a customer, because it's putting LATAM and Brazil into a different level that it was before. But I understand, and what I try to tell to investors all the time is that win by win and making customer success cases with them, learning with them, is that we are prepared for the next wave and the next wave till it becomes the rule, But it's not easy. It's going to take time. It's tiring, but we're doing it.
It is. And we are doing it with Latin American talent. And we are so proud of that. Let's close with that. Thank you so much for being here. I think we have a space and a lot of content for a second episode. I think all the investor and VTEX employee ecosystem will ask us to have a new episode because we have a lot of topics to talk.
Every time you want, I'm here for you.
Happy to have you.
Thank you, Sant.
Bye-bye.
Bye.